So I don't think you've ever told me the story of how you became an educational anthropologist. I know that you started as a French major.
In college.
In college. And so how did you make that switch?
Well, the first thing that happened was when I was in France as a junior in college and thinking that I was studying French literature and French language, I realized that I was actually more interested in the cultural differences between Europeans and particularly the French and Americans. And so I started thinking a lot about that. And when I came back from my year in France, I decided to take some anthropology courses because I wanted to learn more about things cultural. And I also, at that time, had finished all of my language requirements for my degree, and I had an opportunity to take some elective classes. And so I took an anthropology class and I took an educational studies class. And it just so happened that I got interested in the intersection of the two fields because I happened to be taking those two classes at the same time in a kind of relaxed atmosphere because I had already accumulated all my credits for the degree. And the anthropology professor I had in college was Gwen Neville Kennedy, who was a brand new professor at that time, and a woman. And so this was in the early 70s. And I was fascinated with her. I was fascinated with what she had done, her
what kind of work did you do?
Work in her work in Ireland. And she was interested in religion, language, so and of course this was also the time when the South was going through school desegregation. So that was a topic of a lot of the educational studies work that I did. So I just got very interested in how cultural differences and cultural issues were coming to the fore in the South during a period of school desegregation. And so that kind of set me on the course. And then I went to work at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Never heard this either.
Where Shaw is a historically black school. And at that point in time, they needed to have some white students enroll in order to keep their federal funding. And so they hired me to recruit white students to this all-black school in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my being the idealistic young thing that I was at the time, I thought, oh yeah, I can do this. And so I held that job for about a year and a half, and I managed to recruit exactly 0 white students from North Carolina to come to that school. But I had a wonderful experience there in other ways. I really came to love the people there and the school itself. But I realized that I was idealistic, and I needed more training particularly I thought in anthropology and cultural differences and cultural issues in order to be better prepared to do something that was meaningful in that arena. And so I decided to go back to school in anthropology.
And did you plan to go into anthro and ed, or was that another kind of moving thing that happened by serendipity?
It was kind of a combination of planned and serendipitous. So I went over to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to the Department of Anthropology, and I explained my situation. I said that I was interested in anthropology as applied to school desegregation in the South at that time. And they told me, well, we don't have anybody who does that. And so we don't know if this is a good program for you. But at that point, I was a resident of North Carolina. I needed to have a way to go to graduate school without having it cost me too much. So I said, well, how about if I come and go for a year and enter a master's program, see how this is playing out. And they said, okay, well, you can do that, and we'll try to help you design a program that works for
Okay.
you for a master's. And so I was there for a year, and I was taking just the introductory basic courses in anthro, and that was fine. But then at the end of that first year, they had an open position, and they were hiring. They thought they were hiring someone who did quantitative anthropology, and this person was Dottie Holland. And
okay.
I was actually on the search committee and very excited to find this person in the applicant pool. And she was already known to the people at Carolina at the time. She had done her master's degree there.
Okay.
And she had this other interest in education.
Okay.
And so it just was, I mean, that was serendipitous.
Yeah.
So she was hired, and so the second year of my master's program, she became a faculty member there.
Okay.
And because I had been on the search committee, I knew what kind of background she had. I had written her a letter before she even came, asking if I could be her advisee,
Aha.
which she still recalls with some fondness now. Which we discussed when I was at her retirement party last spring. And yeah, so then she came, and one of the very first things that she did together with me was write the proposal to what was then the National Institute of Education to do the study of school desegregation.
Okay,
that we did.
interesting.